And you know, it was funny because I asked Gertz before we started. I said, "Why is that number 3?" And he's like, "Well, I had to put it somewhere, otherwise y'all gonna give me shit." What we're going to do tonight is we are going to talk about some films that we saw throughout the year of 2017. And we're going to talk about our favorite movies so far. So far, as we know, 2017 isn't over. And right before the drought of August, that's when we get into the Oscar season and some of the big hopefuls. So anything might change. But we did come out of a big summer season, and there were some big movies that came out before that. And also some smaller movies that we claim to love. Did it make the list? Well, we'll see. What we're going to do is we're going to do our top 5. And the way I figured it is that we would go ahead and take number 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And in each category, we give what our favorite movies are in that number.
Okay.
If y'all are okay with that.
Yeah. Sure, why not?
Why not? And like I said, this could take a while, so I don't want to take up everybody's time. But I'll go ahead and get this kicked off. Now, there's been a lot of complaints about some of the films that are out there, and people are mainly complaining about the superhero movies. And I get upset when I hear that because one of my favorite movies of this year, not this summer, but of this year so far, is Logan.
No. No. No.
I love that trembling his way. No, no, God damn it! You know the thing with Logan. Everybody saw that trailer, that red band trailer that came out, and that's when people said, "Well, shit! Now we get the Wolverine that everybody wanted to see, the one that goes crazy and just slice people up. Why he got them claws if it ain't gonna draw no blood?
Sure.
If he ain't gonna cut anybody, stab anybody, he just makes swish sounds with it and schnick. Then what's the use of having them claws? Everybody wants to see that really violent Wolverine, or Logan in this case. But the thing is that it's more than the violence, which is what a lot of people would kind of blowing it off as. Oh, well, they're doing some things that are different, but they're just going to exploit this to just put more blood in there. But it turned out that this was one of the biggest risks of 2017 that could have easily have failed, even if the movie succeeded itself. And it's one that paid off. You know, the thing that I could say about this, as far as people arguing about superhero movies being old and taken over and they've already run their course, I believe this movie has the possibility of being one of the first, if not the first, of a serious, dramatic superhero movie, rated R, of ushering in this new period of storytelling with them. But that is my number 5 right there. Let's go ahead and get into the number 5 for everybody else. I'm going to start with you, Martin. What is your number 5? Do you remember?
I think it was War for the Planet of the Apes.
Martin, God damn it. I think you're right. It is. Now, you saw that there's plenty of action in there, but one of the things that I love this movie for was, just like Logan, the emotional spirit behind it. But Martin, this is your number 5 movie. What made it number 5 for you?
Well, just like Logan, it had a surprising emotional core to it. I mean, I guess it's not so surprising because you expect that from these Apes movies. All 3 of them have had that. But this one was more like the first one where it genuinely touched me. And beyond all that, the CGI work had to be the most incredible thing I've ever seen, where all these apes were so believable. There was no point where I questioned it. Even at points where I would stop and go, hold on, this is CGI. None of these apes are real. I'd look at him, I'd stare at him, and I couldn't find a single flaw.
Yeah, that's the same thing with me. And it's one thing to look at a still of these apes right here, but it was funny because if I was an actor, I'd be kind of pissed off because it's like, man, I gave the best performance of my life, and you made me a fucking CG monkey. Steve Zahn, who plays Bad Ape in here, he's great, but
yeah, but what's he gonna do? Go back to being the dad of the wimpy?
Yeah, exactly. Diary of a Wimpy Chimp. But you know, when I looked at it's not only looking at them, but it's the dialogue, like the serious dialogue that went between them, and some of these people, as chimps, CG chimps, gave the best performance of their lives.
Bad ape. Bad ape. No touch.
You know, with that character, what the reason why it was so great and what makes this movie so great is that they managed to be a serious movie, but bring that character in and make him very sympathetic, but also you felt sorry for him and you laughed at him at the same time. Like everything had an undertone of sympathy to it and sorrow. I mean, this movie, for a summer movie that was doing a lot of things that summer movies do, action, explosions, special effects. It was an amazing script, amazing dramatic script. Let me ask you a question though. And I should probably answer my own question with this. How come
it didn't get higher?
How come it's and I ain't going, man, I ain't mad about it.
I knew what I put it on there.
No, man. I ain't coming at you like that, man. Man, that shit should have been higher. Why you so fucked up? No, I'm not even saying that, man. I'm not doing that. I ain't like my crazy dude on the couch back there. Well, it's my opinion.
I feel like you're telling me you're not doing that, but when you finish this question, it's going to be you doing that.
I'm not. I swear to you.
Going to show up on it.
Well, no, I'm not going to do that unless I disagree with what you about to say. No, but for you, and I'll answer that question for me, for Logan. I should have done that at first anyway. How come? Yeah, this is number 5.
You mean why did it make the list at all?
No, why is it number 5? Why are there 4 movies better than this, according to you?
Well, what I can say is those other 4 movies hit me emotionally harder than this did.
Okay.
As much as this did, as much as I was touched by it, those other movies meant more to me.
Okay, and that's something you did mention in your review. Because I mean, and I look, as much as I want to say you're full of shit right now, if you come at me with that emotional argument, I'm like, well, there's nothing I can say because I really, that's the biggest, to me, that's the biggest valid argument somebody can make. What emotionally moved me the most? And I think that's the same thing with Logan. And that's another thing. We agree. As much as I was moved by Logan, it was the most actiony of the movies, or the most mainstream feeling of the movies that I saw, and the other movies just had another emotional level that they couldn't reach.
Right. Everybody's going to come into it with their own past experiences and things they expect, and that's what's going to influence it.
Now let's go ahead and get into number 5. For you, Mr. Goodwin, what was your number 5 movie?
Detroit.
I'm just going to assume you're all criminals.
You don't talk about this to anyone ever. Understand?
Now, we talked about how, I know that Joker had smile like this. Like you could cast him. You know who the best Joker is, my man? Him.
Yeah.
He ain't got no makeup, no scars. He's just smiling. Even Batman's like, I ain't fucking with that. You better back the fuck up. But with this, we were all talking about how we love this movie because it made us feel so many ways while also accomplishing so much with the filmmaking. Why is this number 5 for you, and why did it make your list at all?
Well, the reason it made my list is because this came out of nowhere for me. Because I didn't hear any big hype about it like we did with other movies that are going to be mentioned tonight, like Logan and Planet of the Apes. This came out of nowhere and was like, all right, we're going to show you a story that a lot of people do not know about, and we're going to film it in a great way. And I feel like Catherine Bigelow nailed it. And she made 3 different movies. And that whole time I was like, each of these, I feel, I'm not going to say flawless, but each of these fit together and they go into each other very well. So I appreciated that. And the acting in this was phenomenal. And it kind of felt like a who's who of young up-and-coming actors.
So many great things said about it. Number 5, though?
This movie is hard to watch, and I
get that.
Yeah, this like all the majority of the other movies that I'm gonna list on my list, I've seen multiple times, and I've gone back and enjoyed them again. This is one. It's like, all right, I've seen it. I felt like I've lived through it, and I don't want to ever go through that trauma again.
Let's go to your number 5, which also happens to be
Detroit.
Yeah,
to piggyback off of what you said, because I agree with all of those things, it plays out like 3 movies, each of which is really, really good, and the actors are all great. One thing I really appreciated about this, for the most part, I thought they developed all these characters really well in a pretty short amount of time. You get to know what they're about really fast, and at the same time, they still feel real, and you still care about all of them.
Well, you know what? I hate to go into number 4, piggybacking off YouTube, but my number 4 movie is Detroit. I'm talking about how these movies, I judge them, like Martin said, by the emotion that I get. And this movie gave me a wide range of emotion. This movie scared the fuck out of us because it was like a horror movie. More so because this is reality for some people.
Sure.
a lot of people are considering this movie a bomb. A lot of people consider this movie as somewhat of a financial failure, even though it's a huge critical success. And I don't know how that's going to affect that during Oscar season, because some of these movies that come out in August, if they're great, they get forgotten real quick.
Sure, they sweep them under.
It's been very controversial, and I like that too, because I think it's brought up some good points, whether you disagree with it or not. I like a movie that stirs the pot a little bit and get people talking about important issues, because it got people talking about, all right, you know something, I'm all for black people being in movies, I'm all for black cinema, I'm all for black actors getting their work, but also I'm getting tired of these black ass whooping movies. Black suffering movies. And I think this is an important film, and I don't think that's the case really. I think it's a story that hardly anybody knew.
Right.
And I think it's important to have this film out there. But also, I'm glad that it just made people more aware to have that discussion. But at the end of it all, I'm like everybody else. The reason why it made number 4 with me is because as much as I really love this movie, I'm never going to watch this shit again.
Yeah, man.
You'll have to lock my ass down, and when you do, I'm going to be screaming.
We're going to cut you. Oh, man. You make you watch Detroit. No!
Yeah, cut me, stab me, shoot me. I don't give a fuck, but do not make me watch Detroit again. Can't take it.
Please don't throw me that bribe patch.
Please don't throw me that Detroit patch. Yeah, it's an amazing film, but it doesn't have the rewatchability value of some of the other movies that we'll be talking about. But let's go ahead and move on to some of the other people right here. Martin, sir, do you remember what your number 4 is?
Pretty sure it was Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Evening, Peter.
What, next mission? We'll call you. All right?
That's not a hug. I'm just grabbing the door for you. I'm not there yet.
Now get the fuck out. Martin.
Yes.
Why number 4 positively? And again, why number 4 and not a higher number?
Okay, positively, man, who could imagine this movie would be this much fun? I think we all had a great time in it. It was a great use of Tony Stark, where they didn't overuse him, just enough to work into the plot. The way they wove it into Civil War and everything that's happened before it. Tom Holland makes for a great Peter Parker. Super props on his acting. A villain that everyone could believe in, and it kept a constant rhythm and kept with the jokes, but not being so much of a comedy that it outweighed everything else. I thought it had a perfect balance across the board, and a third act plot twist that really had everybody going, "What the fuck?"
Yeah. Get out the fucking car, man. Let's go to your number 4,
Logan.
Yeah. So while it was number 5 for myself, you put it up a little bit higher.
Yeah, I really like this movie. They're not afraid to get gritty and tell a legit story with a hard R rating. And the other thing I liked about it was that they actually made it mean something, and this is what we get a lot of problems with a lot of Marvel properties, including the movies and the Netflix series, is that death doesn't mean anything in those. But in this one, like, death means something. If somebody goes down, they go down. So I'm like, all right, I appreciate that. And I like, I think, what's his name? Hugh Jackman did a great job, but I also appreciate the little girl. I forgot what her name was.
Yeah. What's her name?
Daphne, she killed it as X-23, and I remember we were talking about this trailer a bunch, and we were like, oh, this just looks like, The Last of Us, or it looks like, just another journey across the country and see what happens, but it was way more than that. It was a lot deeper than that, and they actually showed a lot of powers being used at the end, which they usually don't do in these X-Men movies.
Let's go to your number 4.
War for the Planet of the Apes.
Oh, so yours made number 4 right here.
It did, yeah. I like this movie a whole lot. This was one of my favorite movies of the summer for sure, and it's a gutsy movie too. Like, I can't imagine trying to sell this to like a studio. We're like, we want to make this for $150 million, and it's about an ape being in prison for about half of it.
Not prison, but a concentration camp.
A war camp.
It's
the only way to sell it is have it be part of a trilogy.
Exactly.
I'm going to ask you something that I've glossed over with them. You're giving it such praise. Why not higher?
I think not all of the emotional beats in it work. I think the majority of them do, but there are one or two that felt like a little too saccharine for me, and I don't think it's the best of the 3.
Let me bring it back to you, Martin, real quick, because as much as you were praising Spider-Man: Homecoming, and as much as you just love Spider-Man, what kept this from being higher on your list?
Because the other three movies, I mean, it's only because of what the other three movies meant to me. Just one, a devastating emotional impact, another that made me cry, and one that surprised me so much that it's like Spider-Man was great and it was full of surprises, but there's one in my top three that really surprised me.
Okay. Well, speaking of number 3, let's go ahead and get on with number 3. Now, you talk about some surprises. This was a movie that I almost missed because I got there and they said the movie ain't working, come back. I'm like, man, I'm a busy man. Don't nobody tell Corey Coleman to come back. You better give me a link to that shit or something. But I made time. I cleared my schedule, barely got there, and it's one of those things where I said, man, I really would have been kicking myself had I not seen this film.
So I told you about my brother, yeah?
Don't count your chickens before they hatch. Do you understand that? No.
Okay, do you know what a chicken is?
No.
You mean McNuggets?
The movie is Good Time. And not Good Times. That don't sound like JJ. No, this is Good Time. And the voice you heard is Robert Pattinson. The way the trailer started out, at least. Now, this movie, the reason why I love this is because, and I know how this is going to be. It's going to be a movie where the directors who made this, you're going to hear about some other work that they've done. They're going to like blow up at some point with a film that they've made after this one, or maybe 2 or 3 others. But this is going to be the one that people tell you, man, go back and watch that earlier movie, Good Time, because I think that this is going to just go under the radar for a lot of people. But I love this film because if it's not emotions that get me, it's just showed me something I feel like I've never really seen before. And this movie was so unpredictable. I did not know where it was going to go because it was so fucking crazy. And speaking of being crazy, this is the tone of this is like something I've never seen before because it's a dark movie. It's a dark, serious film, and I laughed my ass off through this whole thing. It was probably one of the funniest comedies that I've seen this year, and I'm still debating with myself or trying to ask myself, did they mean that or did they not? I
don't think it's meant to be a comedy, but just it's an absurdist drama.
Okay, I'm an asshole.
Yeah, I think it's just a sick fuck.
I'm just a sick fuck, as my man has said right here, and I will gladly accept it because being a sick fuck is a good time, as this movie was saying, and so it's very fun. And I just love the energy and the vision of these 2 directors. They're brothers, Ben and Josh Safdie. Ben is the one that played. Now, if you saw the trailer, for those who are listening, you probably heard that. No, it's Robert Pattinson takes his mentally challenged brother to try to do a bank robbery, and of course, between his dumb ass and his brother who's slow, that it goes bad. And Ben Safdie, one of the directors right here, plays the mentally challenged brother. He played.
Man, could Josh be more of a hipster? Jesus,
I know. He's wearing like
he don't have a craft beer in his other hand.
He's spitting on that 8-year-old boy shirt right there.
You don't think he's sitting on a unicycle.
Right.
He's wearing Ernie and Bert's shirt right now. That's what I wore back when I was in 7 years old going to first grade. He's
That's your forehead.
and he has my forehead too. Hey, give me my shit back, man. But with this, these directors just had an energy about this film, man, that I love young directors having. Like when you see people who are first starting out, anywhere from Tim Burton with Pee-wee's Big Adventure to what's his name with Fight Club.
Sure, David Fincher.
David Fincher. These guys got all of that in there. And like I said, they even feel like some 70s directors like John Carpenter, this being set in Queens, New York, it felt like an apocalyptic film, even though it wasn't. And these directors really know how to come in and capture real people. Like some of these people, you don't know if they're actors or if there's somebody they just pulled off the street. And plus, if they are real people, it takes money to get extras to talk. I think I heard somewhere where for extra talks, that's $400 that you have to spend.
Right.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's why often you see people, we love to point them out when you see a character who's a little bit more of an extra, but they never actually have a line.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I'm saying here, they went ahead and just said, fuck it. They spent money on people. It looks like they just got off the street to act for them. It's, I don't know how much this movie will be seen, as I've said, but I really implore people to go check it out.
I loved it too. I got to tell you, it came super close to bumping Planet of the Apes for that number 5 spot.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Okay. Well, we'll see if it actually made it at some other point in your list. But I don't think it's number 3, Martin, because you got something else. What is number 3?
Oh, are we back to me now?
Yeah.
Logan. There's so many ways this could have not worked, and it worked in just about every way possible. And it's one of my all-time favorite superhero films because it does stray off the path. It because it knows it's the last one, so it goes for it. Yeah, everything has consequences. Everything has weight, and it's one of those stories that didn't even have to be about a superhero, but it works and it plays into all the mythology of everything that we've seen so far with these movies, even some of the comic book stuff. And what really pushed it to number 3 was seeing it the first time and being like, wow, and then seeing it the second time with my daughter, and we both sat and cried at the end of it.
Damn. Really?
Yeah.
Sure, she just wasn't crying because she's looking at her daddy crying.
You were my hero. I wish I had claws.
Yeah, stop being a bitch, daddy. No, you disappoint me. Let's go to you for your number 3.
That is I. Lego Batman.
And lady activewear models.
Hey, computer. I'm home. I'm home. I'm home.
You know, I gotta say I love this too because they made Bruce. The Batman was kind of cool. They made Bruce Wayne look like shit.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of linked the comics. But the one thing I really liked about this movie is from the first lines of this, I was cracking up laughing. Like, it just comes on here like, all right, this is what we're in for. Like, I think this movie, of all the movies we've seen this year, did the best job of setting the tone for what it was going to be for the rest of it. For somebody that went into it thinking, oh, it can't live up to the Lego movie, which I really like, it surpassed it easily.
Yeah, didn't you want
so too.
Yeah, didn't you want to take Ben Affleck and say, you know what, just do that?
And it's the best DC movie.
Yeah.
You know what? Quite the opposite. Watching the Lego Batman movie, I was like, man, this has praised and pointed out so much of what's ridiculous with Batman. Mm-hmm. It's hard for me to take another Batman movie seriously now. I don't think any movie in the last few years has had so many good jokes packed in it.
Yeah.
Just by sheer amount.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And as far as I'm concerned, Jared Leto ain't got nothing on this Joker that they have in here.
Catch your greatest enemy. Superman is my greatest enemy.
Superman's not a bad guy.
Then I'd say that I don't currently have a bad guy. I am fighting a few different people.
You should have heard the audience. They were like, oh, yeah. Why you doing like that, Batman?
I think this is probably the most active outside of like when we go see a horror movie that the theater was. It was yay! Like Jesus.
Actually, there's somebody behind me like, but he loves you, Batman.
Most sympathetic Joker ever.
Big old glassy eyes right there. Oh, loved it. Hey, let's go to your number 3, which is
Get Out.
So how long has this been going on, this thing?
Apparently, a whole bunch of brothers been missing in this suburb. But it's cool. Bro, how you not scared of this, man?
And I, it was funny because I asked Gertz before we started. I said, "Why is that number 3?" And he's like, "Well, I had to put it somewhere, otherwise y'all gonna give me shit."
The reason why he's giving away his secrets, they had to put our business out there like that.
He gave away my secrets in a tactful, entertaining way. You know what? I can't stay mad at you.
If you notice, we all drink out of teacups. We don't let him have one. No spoons or teacups allowed around him. Why number 3?
Well, I think this year in general has been a pretty darn good year for thrillers and horror movies. And of all the ones I've seen this year, I think this one, the main reason it got up to number 3 is the more I've seen it, the more I catch things in it that I missed the other times around. Like the first time I saw it, I remember I really liked it. And I was like, yeah, that was a lot of fun and it was really smart. But then seeing it the second time, I was like, I did not give this enough credit, even as much as I liked it the first time around. This is, from just a screenwriting level, this is one of the most impressive movies I've seen this year. Just the amount of callbacks, the amount of detail in the script. And you can tell that Jordan Peele, who wrote and directed this, that he's a writer first, for sure. He does a great job directing it, too. But there were just so many details that I appreciated. And I think it does a really good job of juggling horror, comedy, and social commentary, all three of which are hard enough to do on their own.
And also white guilt.
Yes.
I played a big part.
I had to love this. Otherwise, y'all beat my ass. Now, that's funny, man. And, there's a lot of piggybacking going on right here because we're getting into number 2. And my number 2 is Get Out. And I know what people are saying, of course, because you got to support a black movie. You got to support a brother. You know something? Yeah, I do. Because this is a movie. It's not solely because it's a black thing, but because it is a black thing, there's a lot of social commentary that goes on in there. And me being a horror fan, I think horror, just like science fiction, it works best when it is saying something. Now,
Sure.
You might be talking about the bomb, or you might be talking about social issues that go on, such as racism, which this movie does. And I think that's some of the things with horror that works in science fiction when the familiar touched a little bit too close to home, which sort of amps up the fear that you have. This movie is a lean hour and a half, probably about an hour and 28, maybe an hour and 31 minutes. It's right around that area, but it is a short film, and it is tight. This is a tight. I don't mean slang like, man, that shit is tight. No, I'm talking about this is a tight script. This thing has no fat in it,
no
whatsoever.
Everything means something.
Yeah,
that shit is so lean that they even took some shortcuts that I criticized the movie for and would normally go back and take points off, but this movie did what it does so well. The suspense that the movie has, that it just keeps ramping up through the whole thing. I mean, it just builds up and never stops, even though the movie feels like it's moving at a slower pace. I think this, from a director standpoint and from a scriptwriter standpoint, which Jordan Peele did both, this is a genius piece of work right here. But let's go to our number 1 movies now.
Did everybody have that as number 2?
Everybody had it as number. You know what?
We're going to the number 2s now.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, we're number 2. I'm sorry. We're going to the number 2s. Martin, what is your number 2?
Get Out.
Get out. Get out, man. Yeah, Martin, why not your number 1?
Well, because my number 1 is my number 1, but
that ain't no goddamn answer. No, it's not.
It had been number 1 for so long, and something came and
that's why I
away.
asked, because you talked about how nothing's gonna top this. This is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, on top of everything you guys have said, I am not used to using the word smart with horror films. Almost all of them, even as good as they are, there's always the things you got to like. All right, I'm gonna pretend like that didn't happen, but. Some of the little things that like as Gertz mentioned, every time you watch it, you see stuff that you didn't catch before, and appreciate it even more. I even appreciate the casting of Allison Williams in as much as she's pretty, but not too much. She's not so pretty that you go, oh, come on, how can they be together? She's just about that level where it's like, yeah, she's a good catch. But you wouldn't think anything of it. It doesn't seem suspicious.
It's a movie that you can rewatch over and over again and keep putting together clues, even when you know the results.
Yeah.
So
Well, her getting in that state trooper's face, like, why you got to see his ID? On the surface, it seems like it's one thing. Like you just focus on like,
I
hey,
don't
girl,
want to ruin anything.
No, just like, girl.
The first 10 minutes.
Yeah, the first 10 minutes. Like, hey, girl, don't do that. I know there's people that do that. Later, looking back, it's like, oh no, there's totally a reason for her to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. What is your number 2?
War for the Planet of the Apes. Again, I still think this is the best trilogy in cinematic history, period.
Yep.
Happy that they called it War for the Planet of the Apes, but they didn't have like just an all-out brawl. I know some people were upset by that. Like, it wasn't a war.
Man, don't you get mad about that?
Yeah, it's like well, there's just like war stuff happening around that. Chill the fuck out, homie. But yeah, like there's stuff in here. Like when the movie first kicks in, it's a siege, and I'm like, okay, they're just gonna go in and get these apes, and you see like these apes are gonna fight back, and I'm like, holy shit.
I think we have some of the same criticisms for this movie too. So let's go ahead and get into your number 2 movie. And I'm glad that we're coming up to your number 2 because, like my number 3 film, this is a little something different.
Yes, yeah, it's raw.
And is this done in another language?
This is French.
French, okay, because there's no talking in this trailer.
Yeah,
but and a lot of people. I was having, we're looking at this and just people are like in a college classroom and blood just pours out of nowhere. And I was at a diner last night and I was eating and people sitting next to me, even though I was trying to eat my food, were going into every detail about this movie, which is about cannibalism. But they were raving about this. What is this about?
It's about a girl going to veterinary school and going in her first year. and learning that she has cannibalistic tendencies and having to try to deal with that while going through vet school, and also dealing with her older sister, who we see there. And it also deals a large portion of it is dedicated to their relationship, and we learn more about them and how it changes as they're dealing with this thing that she's going through. What I really liked about this was, because I went into it just seeing the trailer, they were really selling this as a barf bag movie. Like, this movie's fucking disgusting. You'll need a brown bag. You're gonna
I actually heard
guts.
that.
Yeah, and it's not that at all. I mean, there are a lot of scenes that will make you wince. I was wincing a lot through it, just going, ugh. But it's very character driven, and it does what horror movies I like do, where the horror aspect is just there to supplement a larger story, kind of like what they did with Get Out too. Okay. And this one, it's very much a coming of age story.
I like how all of us have been like, yeah, I remember 2 movies, and very emotional, that moved us, and these movies like, yeah, they eat people.
I mean, like, there are emotional scenes in it.
No, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah,
it's
like
a lot of hot people.
Yeah, and there are a lot of pretty people in it.
Now, you say it's very erotic too, is what they were saying in the trailer. Is that true?
Because, I mean, she deals with a lot of things having to do with growing up, and one of those things is sex. So they don't shy away from that at all. There's a lot of tension between her and her roommate, for example, and that's just one of the things.
All right, let's go ahead and get into our number 1 movies so far of 2017. And mine will probably come as no surprise as War for the Planet of the Apes. Don't want to keep harping on this. I'm going to keep this short because you've all talked about this as we've worked our way up to number 1, where we're almost overlapping our compliments of this film. But the reason why I can say it is number 1 for me is because, much like the movie that I talked about earlier, Good Time, this is something where I've never seen anything like it before as far as the special effects. To me, this is almost like an evolutionary step in motion capture and special effects. I was just looking at this and just amazed that I was looking at a movie where the majority of them are fake primates, and they were making me cry and feel as emotional as I was. My expectations were low. I thought they was going to suck, to be honest with you, because the third ones usually do. But I was blown away by what I had. And that's my number 1 movie, which leads me to Mr. Thomas.
Yep. Well, as much as it doesn't have that thing that makes you want to watch it again, Detroit really got to me. And yeah, it's a hard watch. It's so wonderfully made. It's kind of like 12 Years a Slave, where it's like, man, look, this is hard to watch, but it's a wonder. It's beautiful. Where 12 Years a Slave, I'd have gone and rewatched that. This, I don't know if I can do that again. But one of the things of everything we talked about, what we loved about it, I like the fact that, like, it puts you in that moment, that horror movie moment, the second act, where you're being held hostage by these racist cops, and it's horrific. And so often in a movie, it puts you there, and you go through it, and then the scene ends. You're like, "Whew, that was rough." And this one goes, "No, you don't get to leave.
Yeah,
you stay right here.
Yeah,
these kids were here all night. You stay right here." And you just so like, I want to go. It's like, no.
The movie's pointing a gun at you.
yeah. It's not happening to you in real life, but you're gonna get the simulation. And I think it's more effective than any horror movie I've ever seen.
Your number 1 movie.
Number 1 is Get Out. I think everybody said basically what I wanted to say about this movie. I think with Batman, I spent the most time watching it. The most numerous times. Like I said, I watched it 8 times. With this, I've like sat down like this was a Zapruder film. I was like, yo, well, that's when this pumps in. Okay, that's when that jumps in. Okay, got it. And yeah, I think the great thing about it is every time you watch this, you get something new from it, and you're like, oh wow, that's why she didn't want the cop to see his ID. That's why this deer being hit on the side of the road played a major part in this. And I still feel like I could go back and watch it tonight and still pick up on something new. I feel like you said, it was a tight film. It's in like an hour and 20 some odd minutes, hour 30 minutes, and it felt real, and it really hit home with me because I've been in that situation a lot.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So you're just like, all right, yeah. It's very relatable, and I feel like it came at a perfect time when like America's going through all of its shit. Trump being in office, still shootings and everything going on, and just to see the wave and the support that it got, I think really pushed it over to be a great film.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get into Your number one movie.
My number one, Lego Batman.
Oh, look at that, man. I remember when I heard this trailer and I said, you know something, I hate that they're using that song on there because there was a time where, first of all, that's a bad song.
Yeah, it hit some polls as the number one worst song of all time.
Funny thing is, I used to love that song when I was 14.
You know what, that's the thing. That was a point when everybody loved that song, and then they got away from it and went to go like, "Hey, that song was bad." Yeah, that song was bad. Let's burn it,
man. Yeah, don't let me pull that shit like I'm too cool for that shit. Back in the day, I was like, yeah, we built this city.
That song went at the top of the charts because everybody hated it.
Yeah. It's one of those songs. The moment they tiptoed out the 80s, everybody hated that shit.
Yeah.
But you love this movie. Number one.
I do, yeah. I think we said this earlier of all the comedies I've seen recently, I don't think I've ever seen one, at least recently, that had this good of a batting average. I can't think of a single joke here that didn't land at all. Everything in it just about works pretty much perfectly. And beyond the fact that it's really funny, I went in expecting it to be really funny. Not as funny as it was, but still really funny. What impressed me the most about it was how true to the characters they stayed to them. But at the same time, like twisting them around and putting them in scenarios that you wouldn't expect. And of all the Batman movies that I can think of, like big theatrical Batman movies, I think this one probably has the most well-defined Batman from a character standpoint. Also, in addition to fleshing out Batman, we touched on this a little bit earlier too, they made the Joker sympathetic in this, which is what I was not expecting at all. I feel like anytime you learn more about that character, the less compelling he becomes. It's one of my favorite Jokers.
Yeah.
So you want the Joker movie to come out, the standalone?
No, I said...
If it's played by this one.
If it gets Zach Galifianakis.
Yeah, like it's typically when you find out more about him, he becomes less compelling. Here, they did it in a way that felt right.
Well, he was less homicidal too, so we could have a little more sympathy for him.
You could get behind what he was doing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the one Joker you look at and you're like, I get where he's coming from, which is kind of cool to see.
All right then. Well, there you go, folks. That is so far our top 5 movies of 2017, but we do have the fall to go, and we have November and December coming up, and that's when it's really going to hit hard. So we'll see if some of these will get knocked out with some of the bigger movies that are coming later on.